The New York Giants continue with Brian Dable, but they let Daniel Jones go this offseason. They trade back into the first round and select none other than Jackson Dart and not Shador Sanders, which was a very surprising thing. Shador had potentially been mocked to number 3 for the Dallas Cowboys, but not for Dallas,
Giants.
the New York
Giants.
Giants. But they go with Jackson Dart, and they're able to get Abdul Carter in the first round as well because of that. And then they also bring in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. So the first big question for the Giants is going to be quarterback, and that's been a question for many years for them. Daniel Jones, please pull up one of my Daniel Jones graphics, has been the quarterback for now he played quarterback for 6 seasons in New York. Throughout his career in New York, he was pretty bad. He was 24, 44, and 1 with the one season where they went 9-6 and 1. He made the postseason and then beat the Vikings in a playoff game. That win got him a big-time contract, which was worth way more money than he ever should have been paid. But Daniel Jones, for me, was always something I found funny because the night it happened on draft night when he was selected at 12th, I literally did not shut up about it at school the next day. The entire day, I am just laughing, yelling, why would you take Daniel Jones? Why would you take Daniel Jones? It makes no sense. And it proved to be right for me, 24-44 for Daniel in his time in New York. And then when he was not playing, which was a few games, about nearly 20 or so, they had so many different quarterbacks that really ran through the ringer. Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets had a little 8-week stint, 6 weeks last season, and then 2 weeks this year. Drew Lock was a quarterback for 5 games. I don't even remember it, but Tyrod Taylor was a starting quarterback for them 3 years ago for 5 games. Mike Glennon, Tampa Bay Buccaneer legend, started 4 games for them. Jake Fromm, Bulldog legend, started 2 games, and he was actually a part of the infamous moment where they literally took a quarterback kneel inside their own 10-yard line because they were scared to run a play in a game. Got booed by the team. Colt McCoy, horns down, started 2 games for them. And then Davis Webb from Stanford also started a game. These are all the quarterbacks since Eli Manning. So for New York and for New York Giants fans, they're looking for an answer at quarterback. And they bring in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, if you'll pull that graphic up, who last season were not necessarily great. Russell actually...
I didn't get that one put in. Apologies.
That's fine. Russell actually had a good season for me, in my opinion, especially given the cast of characters he had there in Pittsburgh. 225 yards a game. He was a 16-5 touchdown interception ratio, threw for a 95.6 passer rating, and was 6-5 in Pittsburgh, which for Pittsburgh that's how every quarterback is done. So it's not necessarily an indictment on Russell. My bet would be that Russell is going to start the season for them. But you also have Jameis Winston in-house. He threw for only 177 yards a game with the Browns last season for a 13-12 touchdown to interception ratio.
Sounds like Jameis.
Which, yes, that is just like Jameis with his previous 30-30 season that he had in Tampa Bay. Quarterback is the question. That'll be my first question I'll throw to y'all. Who starts the season? When do you expect there to be a change? Who do you expect that change to be?
Sure. First, little story time. You talked about you running around school the day after them drafting Daniel Jones. I was in a similar boat because not only did they pass up on Daniel Jones, well, they took Daniel Jones and passed up on Dwayne Haskins, which led to the Redskins getting Dwayne Haskins, now the Commanders. And I was like just so sure that they had goofed and that Dwayne Haskins was going to make them regret that for years. Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. Obviously, that didn't work out very well, but it's not like they made a better pick with Daniel Jones. But I was so giddy that night after they took Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins fell to us. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear to me that Russell Wilson's going to start the season, even just like looking at the contracts they gave Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. In terms of when they pivot, I don't want to necessarily tip our hand too early, but I don't see them having a very good season at all for reasons I can get into later. But I think that's going to lead to them having to potentially look at Jackson Dart earlier than they would want to, even if they maybe go Russell Wilson Then Jameis Winston for a couple weeks, and that doesn't work out either. And then it's like, screw it. I don't really think Brian Dable or Joe Sheen is the general manager.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think either of them really have good job security. So then I think there is well, let's just see what we have with the rookie, try and salvage something. And Jackson Dart ends up getting playing time before I don't know, around the midpoint of the season, week 10, week 11, something like that. But
I'm really curious to see if the season goes poorly, which we all think it will. Is Brian Dable and Joe Shane probably should still be in a ton of question, and then it's no help that he, didn't re-sign Saquon, and that was all filmed on camera. But I am curious if Brian Dable is under fire and could be fired this season if they're bad, because then I don't understand, why did you bring him back for another season? Why didn't you just go and get another head coach and then let that head coach select your quarterback for the future? Now you're going to be in a spot where if you do fire Brian Dable, the next head coach who comes in is not guaranteed to like Jackson Dart as their quarterback, and now you've wasted a first-round pick on a quarterback, and you're going to just run through the cycle again, and New York still won't have an answer at quarterback, nor will they have an answer at head coach. So I hope for the Giants it is, even if they're bad this season, they continue with Brian Dable. And that's really the only way that's going to happen, I think, is if they see some promise in Jackson Dart when he does play.
Sure.
For me, I have him starting week 9 against the San Francisco 49ers. Their schedule is brutal, so there's not really a cakewalk game where you can ease him in. But through those first 8 games, I think they're in a spot where they can win a few games here and there with Russell or Jameis, but then they go to Denver and to Philly in week 7s and 8, and they're more than likely going to get crushed in those 2 games. You come home and you can start Jackson against San Francisco. San Francisco is to fly across the country. Maybe you have a chance in that game. For me, that's where Jackson Dart gets a start for the New York Giants. But I'm just curious. If they're bad, would they actually fire Brian Dable? And if they do, it doesn't make sense to me, because you're going to just put yourself in another question. For the bright spots for New York, it is the defense, we think, should be really, really good because of the names there, and they should be with the talent that they have. Drafting Abdul Carter, they add him to a defensive line that now has Brian Burns, who is elite, big, sexy Dexter Lawrence, who is elite, Kayvon Thibodeau, who is just he's a guy who is supposed to be really, really good but hasn't put up the numbers yet, a la Justin Herbert. You view him as a potential, but
he has put up numbers
already
kind of
3 seasons into the
Jack,
undeniably.
don't try and argue with him about this.
Okay,
It's not gonna.
okay,
It's not gonna go well.
Bobby Okereke, who I actually think is one of the best middle linebackers in football, is there in the middle. So that front 7 is going to be really, really good and really fun to watch. I mean, you could rotate guys, and you're rotating, like, if you're rotating in Abdul Carter, that's a sight to behold. And I think it'll be fun to see how will they do against the Eagles' offensive line. How will they do against now the Commanders, who have rebuilt their offensive line in the offseason? And then Dallas, are they going to be able to tear apart Dallas with their kind of weaker offensive line? The divisional games are going to be interesting to see, and really see how do those quarterbacks attack this defense. Offensively, I have no faith really in anyone on that offense besides Malik Neighbors.
My goat.
And so because of that, I don't see, yes, defense wins championships, but you still have to be able to move the ball to some degree, and I don't see how they do it because their offensive line is not good. Andrew Thomas is really the only offensive lineman who is of note. The rest of them had sub 64 PFF grades last season. Their running back room is not necessarily great. Tyrone Tracy had some bright spots, but Tyrone Tracy to me had bright spots because people knew him in fantasy because he was putting up fantasy numbers. But he's putting up fantasy numbers because someone has to put up fantasy numbers for the New York Giants. And someone has to move the ball. That's kind of how the NFL works. It's like in the NBA, like someone's got to score points for the Charlotte Hornets. That doesn't necessarily mean Lamar or not Lamar, LaMelo Ball is great or Brandon Miller is great. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
And it felt like that for me for Tyrone Tracy last season. Cam Scatterbo was drafted by them, and people obviously are excited to see him and see how he carries the ball. And the New York fans are going to love Cam Scatterbo.
He's a character. He's got good energy, too.
Yep. But their receiver weapons, they're really unchanged outside of Malik Neighbors. They still have Darius Slayton there. Wandale Robinson is still there. Jalen Hyatt, who was supposed to be a superstar and had that infamous clip of him telling a coach that he's stupid for not, being high on Jalen Hyatt, is still there, and he'll be like the sixth-string wide receiver. And then tight end, they have no options for me. Theo Johnson is only a name because of fantasy football, and like I said, it's only a name because someone has to score points at tight end, and there's really only 10 or so tight ends that can actually score points. So Theo Johnson starts on a ton of teams in a 16-team league, so that's the only reason anyone really knows that name, in my opinion. They also drafted Darius Alexander, who Jack is, of course, really, really high on.
Cap.
Not at all. He hated his tape. And
Look, I'm not saying he can't be a fine player. I just, out of all the people assigned to me, he had easily the most boring tape. Just nothing really popped from the film. A lot of I'm big, I clog lane, which can have use. But
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing to have from a defensive tackle. It's just not a lot of fun to watch 8 minutes of that.
Especially when they
Yeah.
play for Toledo. So I'm
Yeah.
watching it against like southeast west Idaho. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that is fair. Continue, GP.
But he's gonna his skill I think will be used well because he doesn't have to be the elite guy
Correct.
in that defensive
Yeah.
line. They grabbed Paulson Adebo from the Saints, who was hurt for parts of last season but was our best corner in New Orleans. And they also bring in Javon Holland from the Dolphins. Defense, like I said, should be good, but I'll throw it to y'all on this. I don't trust the offense and really anyone outside of Malik, and I definitely don't trust the quarterbacks there. I'm not high on Jameis. I'm not high on Russell. I'm damn sure ain't high on Jackson Dart. And so I just don't know how they're going to score points, even if they hold teams to 17. Like, how are they going to score 18 points? Because you have to do that to win a game.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that I trust Jameis. Well, okay. First of all, I'll say this: I would rather start Jameis Winston over Russell Wilson.
Okay.
And part of that is just the thrill factor of watching Jameis Winston play football.
Fair.
It is
Sure.
more exciting to me than watching Russell Wilson play football, especially current age Russell Wilson, where he's kind of lost. Young Russell Wilson had some of that, not necessarily Kyler Murray to him, but the scamper. He had a lot of scamper to his game.
He was elite at that.
Exactly.
He was Patrick Mahomes at that before
Yes,
Mahomes was
correct. So he was terrifying in broken down plays where he's outside the pocket and you don't know what he's going to do. As a defense, he was terrifying. I don't think he's at that same level, and I don't think he has the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers to his game.
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees, yeah, to kind of just stay in there and dice up defenses. So that's I'm not high on current Russell Wilson, and so I would rather see Jameis Winston out there for the fun factor. Also because I think it's what Malik Neighbors wants. There were rumors that he was prolonging his injury and or tanking. No, what was it? What was it? Did y'all see the tweets?
No, I didn't.
I think it was he went sicko mode in a game so that they would win and couldn't draft a good quarterback. And the rumor, like the Twitter theories were that he went sicko mode so that they would have to sign Jameis Winston because they couldn't draft Cam Ward or something.
What's his love affair with Jameis Winston?
Jameis Winston's just going to do nothing but throw him the ball.
Oh,
And
he can get
Exactly. Jameis Winston's just going to throw him the ball like 20 times a game, and he's going to break the receiver.
As a dynasty owner of Malik Neighbors, I'm not too opposed to that.
I mean,
He's gonna get his
last
targets. He's gonna
Yeah.
get his yards.
There
he's
was
gonna get his
a
touchdowns.
point in the season where I think I texted in the chat that I was like, Malik Neighbors might like break the reception record because
Yeah.
he was averaging like 9 to 10 catches a game.
He's getting like 17 targets a
Yeah.
night.
And so Jameis is going to give him 23, and he will break the reception record.
He's
So
gotta stay healthy, man.
I trust Jameis Winston to put up, and Jameis Winston and Malik Neighbors, and then to a lesser extent, Darius Slayton is not a terrible second or third option. He's by no means elite, and there are other better second or third options to have, but I mean, at a time he got a shot as the number one wide receiver and it didn't work out. But I'm not gonna praise Darius Slayton, but I think that offense, at least with Jameis Winston at quarterback, and then Malik Neighbors is the wide receiver one, and then some other options out there. I think they can put up some points. I don't think they're gonna be able to do that consistently, but I think it's gonna lead to them winning a couple games. We can get into record predictions, but I think that they're gonna win some games because Jameis Winston and Malik Neighbors just go insane for a game. And then on that defensive side of the ball, I do think that they're gonna be able to hold teams to 18. That defensive line is, as far as units go in the NFL, one of the best units you have. You've got Dexter Lawrence, you've got Brian Burns, who I don't know how he was last year, but there was 2 years ago in Carolina was offered 3 first-round picks by the Los Angeles Rams for Brian Burns because he was young and productive. And I don't think he had quite the same season his last year in Carolina before he was traded to New York. But you've got those two guys, and then you draft Darius Alexander in the 3rd round. You also still have Kevon Thibodeau. Is that right? Did I say that right? Yeah. So is he on the?
He's probably way down there because they're so stacked.
Yeah, and then you've also still got there he is.
Where you drafted Abdul Carter as well.
This has got him listed as the backup behind Abdul Carter. So that defensive line could be insane.
Tracy Ford as well. Man, I mean that's just player right there.
Darwin Nunez Roches as well.
What was the game with Houston again?
He was in Weddle.
That's
Weddle
right.
hard mode.
That's right.
Yeah.
We did not get him.
Yeah, I've never.
He hadn't been in the league for like 10 years or something
exactly,
like that.
Too. He'd been on the Chiefs for 5 seasons, and I had never heard this guy's name. And I think he has like
all
the Chiefs games.
8 sacks across his 10 years, something like that. 30 snaps.
I would say I don't understand the trust of Jameis and Malik Neighbors to be productive.
I'm not trusting them to be productive every game. I'm trusting them to be productive
for
in
how
many
games?
At least a third to a half of the games. I trust.
But 6 games? You think they're good enough to win 6 games because of Jameis and Malik?
I'm not saying they're good enough to win 6 games. I'm saying they're good enough to be productive in 6 games. There's a difference.
I think my worry there is
competitive in 6 games.
You get the ceiling with Jameis, right? He may get you some more passing yards or some more big plays, but then when he has a game he throws 3 picks, who cares he threw for 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns when he gifted the game away? Because your defense, if you can honestly just play the field position game and just keep pinning teams back and back, but then when Jameis is 1st and 10 on his own 25-yard line and throws an ill-advised ball and the ball hawks that the Cowboys have take it away, and suddenly Dak has to drive his team 20 yards down the field to score, then it suddenly gets a little more iffy for the defense.
I've got them being competitive in like 6 to 8 games. I do not have them. I have them winning a lot less than that. But I've got that offense clicking in 6 to 8 games to be competitive.
I just don't trust the defense to be necessarily good enough throughout and perfect. They really have to be perfect for 4 quarters to put them in a spot to win games. And I think, the guys on the defensive line are really good. They're great pass rushers, great at getting to the quarterback. How many times do you rush the passer when you're down 14 points? Once a possession, because they're running the ball at that point. They're trying to burn clock on the other side. And I think that's going to hurt the defensive line more than it will help them. So that's where I get to the point of I don't trust then the offense to go score on their first drive to put them in the spot where we're in the 3rd quarter and it's a 3-point game and it's 3rd and 7 and Abdul Carter can tee off on the quarterback and Brian Burns can tee off. I just don't see them getting into that spot even 6 times. I don't even see it 3 times necessarily. It's just I think this is a team that bring it to December, maybe they're in that spot more, because you watch a New York football game in December, that's how those games are played out. They're played out slugfesty, 17-10, stuff like that, 21-14. They're really low scoring, and so I think that can help them as they get deep into the season. But at that point, as we are going to predict, like they would be spiraling, and I don't think there's a ton of trust for them to even win a game at that point in the season. Go ahead.
I agree. I also think talking about trusting their offense, I know you've touched on it, JP, but I don't think we've really hammered how bad the offensive line has been in recent years, and the lack that in my opinion, the lack of I guess, focus they put on improving that this offseason? It's largely the same group, no?
Yeah.
And the group that's just
They're returning 5
underperformed.
guys from in-house.
Yep. And so it's another thing that, like, if I'm gonna want Jameis to try and make plays or Russ Wilson try and make plays, Russ Wilson's no longer the scrambler. We're gonna need a clean pocket, and I don't necessarily think that's gonna be there that often this year, or often enough to put together drives and whatnot and get down the field to score.
I told Jack this off, we were talking earlier this afternoon doing podcast prep. The Giants are in a weird position because the administration that's there now, they drafted Jackson. Like, these are their guys. This is what, year 3 of Brian Dabble?
Brian Dable.
Dable, sorry.
And yes, it's year 3.
And so, I mean, this is kind of another bad year. Would not bode well for his. I mean, that we're looking at. I mean, is he on the hot seat after? Like, is he gone after?
He was on the hot seat last season, and that's where
doesn't make sense they brought him back.
Talking about later, like, why did you earlier? Why did you bring him back?
Right.
If you were gonna be bad this season, but I would counter my own point by saying they don't think they're gonna be bad this season. And
right.
That's the way they have approached the offseason. We don't bring in guys like Paulson Adebo, and you don't bring in quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Jameis if the plan was also to draft a quarterback.
Definitely
just
not
have
both.
him start. So they think they're going to be good this season.
Yeah.
And, like, we don't see that, obviously. And I don't think a lot of people see that.
What I said to Jack was, if this was Madden, or if I knew that I was going to be in the building next year, I would just be biting the bullet and recognize that this roster is not good enough on the offensive line or potentially in the secondary to win. Like, I would just be tanking. I'd be going, but what I would be tanking and then trying to trade out of that pick. Like, I just don't think this roster is good enough. But Dable can't just accept that this roster is bad and lose games. Because if he loses game, he's
I don't think they'll do that, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
They're not
well,
going to. It's also a thing of
they can't afford to just lose games because this is his roster. These are his guys.
And I don't think they should do that. Think
they're not that far off, to be honest.
Lower than we should be, but I think a large part of why we're so low, which I'll reveal now. I have them going 3-14. Sanders has them going 2-15, and Jack has them going 1-16. And it's large in part because they are not favored in a single game next season.
The schedule is
brutal.
It's unreal.
And they play, obviously, Washington, Dallas, and Philly 6 times. That's 6 games. The NFC West having to play, not the NFC West, the AFC West having to play Denver, Kansas City, Las Vegas, and the Chargers. Really tough division. Having to play the NFC North, which people view as the toughest division in football. Having to play the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. That's not an easy game. I don't care who is starting at quarterback. So the schedule is absolutely brutal. There's no layups there. But I think we're still even too low on them because I think they're going to be in a spot where they're going to win more games than they should. Now, their preseason win total was 5.5, so even Vegas kind of views them higher than we do, which, again, 5.5 doesn't make sense to me if they're not favored in a single game next season. Yeah. So that may be something you want to bet on is under 5.5 next season.
I think the hard thing was I agree. I have them going 2-15. I think the Giants are going to win more than 2 games, but I can't look at this schedule and decide what those games are going to be. It's. I mean, I don't know if you have.
I'm in the exact same boat.
Yeah,
because
1-16. I don't think you think they're only going to win.
They're gonna win more than 1 game, but trying to find a spot on the schedule to even give them a win is tough because JP already laid it out, and then you even look. The weaker teams they play. Well, I mean, I think New England's going to be improved, but you also have to go to New England, right?
Yeah.
The Raiders, some people are iffy on them. You have to go to Las Vegas. So even the easier teams you play.
And New Orleans, like JP said.
Yeah, you have to go to them. You don't get them at home, which makes it tough.
At Chicago.
Mm-hmm. We did just spend a lot of time dogging on their roster. I do actually think they have a lot of pieces that are really good, and it's close to being a good team. The schedule just is going to leave no room for error, and I don't think they're good enough to overcome that.
Yeah. And then, I've got them going 2-15. I gave them an upset over San Francisco at home.
Everything's an upset, apparently.
Yeah. And then, I guess, technically an upset at Las Vegas. I'm very low on the Raiders, and they're going to dog.
I thought Geno Smith was your guy. That was a huge move.
Yeah. It's just I don't know what to do, how to pick 4 other games. It really is just going to be, does the defense, like JP said, does the defense show up and do they get like 6 sacks in a game or 5, 6 sacks in a game? Do they just absolutely hound the quarterback? Does Malik Neighbors and Jameis Winston or whoever's throwing the ball, does Malik Neighbors go off for 150 and 2 touchdowns? Like, and the 3, 4, 5, 6 games where those stars all align, they're going to get 4 or 5 wins.
They just got to make sure they win some of those games that they're in when
Yeah.
this happen.
And it's just I can't look at the schedule and be like, oh yeah, I really trust the Giants defense to play perfect against the Commanders offense. I really trust the defense to play perfect against the Kansas City Chiefs. Or I trust the offense to go off for 30 points against the Eagles defense. Like, I can't pick those things. They're going to happen. It's going to happen. I just can't pick that. That's why I've got them going 2-15.
Sure. That kind of closes out New York. We're low on them. All of us are low on them as a group. We have them going 1-16. Go ahead.
Also, I hate the Giants.
Okay, well said.